Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. So today's reading, we're looking at what big challenge or opportunity or battle or competition are you really primed to win, and then how to make sure that you do actually win. So this could be anything from some form of competitive sport or competition for a job or something like that, through to chasing your true love and finding, the pure happiness of a long-term relationship, or it could be a creative project you're taking out in the world, or it could be even a challenge that you're making for yourself personally, like a fitness campaign or something like that. So we really just want to look into the sort of energy around you where you are really taking challenges, battles, commitments, and so forth head on. And then we're going to have a look with the tarot about what this means to you now, why it's important to you now, and what Spirit's advice around strategy is for you. We'll have a bit of a look at who might your main competitors or people that you're kind of connecting with in whatever this is, who they might be and how they may respond to the particular challenge that you're dealing with at this point in time. And again, this could be someone who is straight out a competitor of yours, or it could be someone who's helping you like a coach. So depending upon what we see and what relates to you, that we're really just looking at their sort of personality and how they're kind of responding to this. And then we'll look at your spiritual skills and other advice from Spirit to really make sure that you win in whatever it is that you're aiming to do. So what I thought in terms of the way to choose the cards is that I'm going to use, as I often do, a different tarot pack for each reading. And so I've actually chosen the Chariot card from each of the tarot packs because to me it's really that sense of dynamism, moving forward. There's always a little bit of challenge associated with the Chariot because it's balancing competing energies and so forth, head and heart, ambition and balance for others and all that sort of thing. There's all that kind of balance that's around Chariot, but it also has that sense of destiny and momentum and winning and moving forward and so forth. So I thought it was the best way to do that. We've got, of course, the numbers that I'm going to put down for anybody who likes to choose by numbers, but just to go from one pile to the next, the first pile, reading 1, is using the Flights of Fantasy Tarot. Pile 2 is using the Crooked Cat Tarot, and can I pause for just a second and say how cute is the Chariot in this deck? This cat moving forward into the world. Just love that image. Not that I'm saying everybody should choose pile 2. I don't know what pile 2 is going to say. I just wanted to comment on how gorgeous the image was. For pile 3, we have the Somnia Tarot, and for pile 4, we have the Lunar Light Angel Tarot. So these are all decks I've used quite a bit in my channel, so hopefully you may be familiar with them if you're familiar with the channel. If not, it might be just the image that draws you, or that may not be the way that you choose your deck. You may do it intuitively. You may need to pause the video and meditate. You may be someone who says, I always choose number 2 or number 1, for instance. Do whatever works for you. If you want to go to more than one reading, if there's more than one challenge you're dealing with, then by all means do that. There's no rules around that. Just do whatever you feel drawn to, and when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, I've got the timestamps in the description box below, so I will see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So we're starting with some oracle cards to get a nature of what this challenge or battle is that you are pursuing. And I must say that for you, I think this is really about you becoming more of yourself, true to yourself, authentic, proud of who you are, proud of your internal and external beauty and your place in the world. And the sense that I get from these cards is that the challenge that you are dealing with is that to do so, you may need to move forward and away from people in your life. Not everybody, this is not suggesting that that will be the case, but it looks as though part of the challenge is in expressing yourself in some way, in becoming more of who you are, in taking on your own power. There may be some issues around friends, family, current relationships, etc., where people feel a bit threatened by you extending yourself or don't understand what you're doing. I get the sense for some of you, you've had an aha moment about who you are and what you want to develop into, and it may be very different to what your friends thought you were going to do, or your friends were doing together, or your workplace wants of you, or something like that, because this is all very clearly an internal journey towards who you are and expressing who you are. But it's very interesting that the first card that we get with Archangel Haniel is about friendship. and there's psychic ability. You are very, very strongly connected to the people. You care a great deal about the people around you. The issue for you, I think, and what you're trying to now do and win at is not to win against your friends or win against your family or win against your love or whatever it might be necessarily. I mean, some of you may literally need to do that. It depends how strong this difference is. But I think for most of you, it's not that. It's how you make that change and you become more who you are and you get accepted without, on one level, losing the friendships or the connections, or if some do need to move on, that you've outgrown them, that there is no longer the same connection, to do it in a way that is gentle and kind, because you are that person. You are honouring yourself and who you are, and the last thing you would ever want to do is not honour the other people as well, and not honour the relationships that you've had. But Spirit is saying with Sawallo here as a rune, this is about your own identity, being true to who you are, the truth of who you are. It is the representation of the sun. So that sense of shining bright. I think for some of you, and I think with Baim here, with the concept of beauty, this is a very broad concept of beauty. It takes in natural beauty, the beauty of creation, all of those sort of things. But I think that you are creating in yourself something that is very beautiful, something that is very different. And as I say, requires you to self-identify and move forward with who you are more than maybe fitting in. And possibly you fit in before, not because I think of any sort of sense of, well, I'm just going to settle, but because I think that you're very kind. There's a very kind energy that comes off you, but you are at a point where you need to move forward. With the medicine horse here, that is about healing. And I actually think many of the people who've come to Pole 1 are actually natural healers. Part of this journey might be owning that in some way. It might be understanding those skills. It will be interesting when we get to some of the spiritual skills later on, whether that connects back to that or some of the astrology, because I do feel there's a healing energy in you, and you can heal yourself and you can heal others. It may be simply that by being an example and doing this, you actually help liberate other people to be true to themselves in some way. But I do think some of you might use this energy, and part of who you are is to become more of a healer, either conventionally or in some form of alternative therapies. Certainly with Oya, this is about personal power. You are coming into power. The shadow side of this, these two cards, the shadow side of this is things being too calamitous, too much power, like a tornado. The shadow side of Baim here is where there is a detachment from what is beautiful and natural. So I think the part of what you are doing within yourself, which becomes, I think, an example for others, is taking the power in a way that is properly managed and which has a real reverence for the people around you, the environment that you're in, all of those sorts of things. If you were, as I say, becoming a healer, there would be great reverence, I think, for the natural remedies, for what is beautiful in creation. There's a feeling around that with you. The Baim here is actually a god that was connected with First Nations people here in Australia. So there's a deep feeling about connection to the land as well. So some of you, it may be about connecting to ancestral roots and the culture and so forth. It may be becoming more of that. Maybe you moved away from that, or it might be that you actually need to take what is beautiful out of that but still become who you are. But you are not really, by the looks of things, in a battle with someone. You don't look like you're necessarily in a competition to win a job or to win in a game or something like that. This really looks like it's more, the challenge is to be true to who you are. So if that resonates, you've come to the right reading. So then let's have a look with tarot. Let's go into a bit more detail. So let's look at what this battle, this challenge, which I think, as I say, is an internal challenge you put on yourself, really means to you. What's sort of at stake? And then we're going to ask Spirit for their strategic advice. So these cards are telling me that part of what is triggering this is being misunderstood, and potentially as a result of that, not being treated fairly in some way. So this would be a classic set of cards for someone who is in a friendship circle who who was not sort of seen as the leader necessarily and was meant to follow and meant to do what the group said, and you started maybe to try and spread your wings and have your viewpoints and was shut down in some way, it does look as though there's at least one person who's been around you, and it may be a friend that it's hanging in the balance, who wanted to suppress that energy of you starting to shine. I don't necessarily feel like it was malefic. I don't get a sense from this. It's just more that there were almost established rules within this group, or it could be a family member, it could be a workplace, and you've had a sense that is not just. I don't feel like you're carrying a grudge about it. I don't think anything like that. You're very emotionally mature in actual fact. That's not what's going on with this. But you know that a decision needs to be made, because what you are trying to develop is very precious to you. It's close to your heart. So if it is, as I say, if it was to take an alternative route around healing, then that really matters to you. And it may be sort of stepping outside of a family or friendship circle that says this is all about money and power, and why are you doing that when your calling is to something else. But the reason that this is important is this comes straight from your heart. So you are very heart-centered. The reason that it's a challenge is because you're very heart-centered. As I say, right from the beginning, you are very loyal to the people who you're around. The last thing you would ever want to do is hurt somebody. And you will, by your own actions, suppress what you feel and think if you think it's going to hurt someone. And I think you've just sort of had this sense of, I can't do that anymore. I need to become who I am. I've understood that now. I feel something's happened in your life where you've gone, now I know. Now, for some of you, because of the nature of these cards, it has to do with how you present yourself to the world, possibly things like how you choose to love, your gender how you gender identify. It could be something like that. That is a possibility, and you're knowing now that you need to become more who you are. There is a real sense for some, as I say, around healing, natural therapies, the environment. The other side of this for others is around how you physically present yourself, and how you love, how you connect, what your community is on that sort of level. So there's a sense of diversity in both of those things. So in the first, it's like maybe you're in very conventional environments and you're more alternative and unconventional, or in the other, it might be that you were very kind of conventional, but you were more sort of dramatic and performative and different, but everything comes from your heart, and you are such a kind person. This is why it's difficult. This is why there's a challenge associated with it. But equally, it is also, Spirit is saying, why you win, because it is so true. So let's ask what the strategic thing is, because the interesting thing here is that because you're so from the heart, you may not be thinking about it strategically, you may be feeling into it. So let's ask Spirit for what's a strategic way for you. Almost, what would your mind tell you? Once your heart knows what it wants, what would your mind tell you to be able to navigate this? Because this is really about you making choices and developing yourself. So Spirit is saying, firstly, that you need to recognize, and this might be picking up some of the healing energy, that part of the role that you have with people in your family, friends or whatever, and part of the reason why it's hard for you to move into your own sun energy and who you really are, is that you have taken on a kind of proxy nurturing relationship with people. You are the person who cares. This is probably why I have a sense of the healing. With the Empress reversed here and with the Devil, there is a sense where you have entrapped yourself by your kindness and your wish to care for people. And I do think that part of what is triggering this is you have had an aha moment about at least one person who I actually don't think, this is why it's hard. I feel like they're not deliberately being difficult, but you've realized to some extent that it's an imbalance in the relationship. But it is something that you need to recognize. And I think Spirit is saying, remember that as you go forward as well, that there is something naturally warm and caring and nurturing about you. But if you put yourself aside for people, if that's one of your natural things to do because you come from the heart, you keep getting trapped in whatever definition someone else wants to put on you and the demands that they put on you. So be aware that that's the case, and be aware that it stops your progress. the person that you could be, the person you're trying to be, kind of gets distracted all the time by looking after other people. And you need to be able to, with the Eight of Cups, let go of some of the emotional connection around that. You need to be able to deal with any emotional pushback as well too, because I think the Spirit is saying you will get some, because people, not because people are being nasty, but because they're used to you always being there for them, and you're going to need to put some boundaries around this. You need to think about that. This is a strategic side. Because remember with Oya is about sort of power. When it goes into the shadow, there's a tornado. I think Spirit is saying it's not going to be that major, but you are going to have to deal with some emotional fallout as you do this. But it recalibrates, it resets the relationships. And I think most will stay in your life, but you will have recalibrated it. And if some do move on, it is the right time for some to move on. So Spirit wants you to understand that you're on the right path. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. But your own kindness, you're an innately incredibly kind person, is your Achilles heel. So strategically, you need to understand that. Stay true to your heart. You're not going to hurt people too much. If people get a bit histrionic about it, it's not actually you, and just let that pass through. Like a storm rather than a tornado, just let it pass through and let the beauty of who you are speak for itself. Okay, so given that sort of energy, and as I say, that it is mainly you. One part of this reading was to look at who might be the competitor, the combatant. So I'm thinking here that I'm going to ask Spirit to give us a little bit of an idea about the people who will feel like you're shifting the relationship and might push back, the people that have this sort of energy. Just so that if some of these characteristics connect for you, you'll kind of know where that's most likely to come, or it might confirm if you already think you know where that's going to come from. And also to get a sense about what's the nature, what is their nature, and why is that occurring? Like what could be the way that you will see it? So I have a number of different decks that are personal characteristics generally, and I'll also use an astrology deck for some astrology stuff. So we're just going to, this section of the reading is to try and identify, in your case, where you might get pushback. So firstly, we have mirthfulness and circumspection. Okay, so this could either be one person. I'm feeling it actually as a couple. See, the feeling I get for you, even though I think maybe there's one person in particular who pushes back first, is that you are moving away from groups, you are moving away from a family structure, whatever it might be, to become more true to yourself. So there's probably a number of people, and this feels like two different energies, though it could be the one person, if whatever resonates for you. There is an energy around at least one of the people around you that is mirthful, that is fun, that likes to have fun and all that kind of thing. But what they can do when they feel cornered or lost, or they feel that, you're doing something that they don't want or something like that, is it can move into things like ridicule or joylessness. So they could start to be saying, you're making me miserable, or they could say, who are you to think you're going to be this person? So there could be an energy like that, where there's either a kind of telling you you're wrong and you can't do it, to undermine it, to bring you back into control, or it could be just that they kind of go, I'm so unhappy, and try and sort of pull on your heartstrings. My guess actually is that they'll largely do that, but it is possible with mirthfulness. And you'll know because this person normally sort of is fun to be around, and there's almost like a switch. If you start to stop being the support to them and the sort of the kind of cheerleading squad to them, I think that you will start to see that shift. There's also potentially others who are more circumspect. It may be a bit harder to know that that's happening. You may get the sense of it where you just feel that things are off balance, but they're not really going to say it. And so this feels a bit passive aggressive. This feels sort of, well, actually both of them feel a bit passive aggressive, to be honest, but this feels a little bit more hidden. So I feel like there's a couple of energies around this. And it could be somebody vacillating between the two. They could sometimes just go, no contact, not speaking to you, being very circumspect, not telling you anything. And at another time, maybe sort of trying to either indicate to you that you've taken the fun out of everything and you're too obsessed with what you're doing at the moment, or something like that. Okay, so let's see some other qualities around these people. Having said this, that sounds pretty heavy, but I don't actually think, I really strongly don't think for most people who come here that this person is, all these people are malicious. It's just because you're tipping the balance literally on what used to be the relationship, that you've just got to go through that sort of energy where there's pushback. But I do think in most cases it'll come through okay. We also have Europe, okay, and Africa, okay. So this could literally be, for some, because this is a collective reading, that there are people who have backgrounds from either Europe or Africa, or they could be people who travel a lot. So there could be a sort of sense that people travel a lot. And some of the pushback there might be that they expect you to be keeping the home fires burning while they travel a lot. And some of the pushback is, well, how can I keep doing this? So if this was a partner or somebody in your family, that could be part of it. But otherwise, they could have backgrounds there, or they could have interests in those. Or location could be important. So the location here might not be the issue. It might be that where you are at any given time and where they are at any given time is part of the pressure about it. I feel the primary energy of this is that they may push back by saying, you know, we have so little time together because you're always traveling now, or I travel and this, you know, and now you're not available. It's that kind of feeling, I think. But in some cases, if it resonates for you and these sort of origins make sense to you, then you know that that's starting to confirm the person. We'll pull another couple of cards. Oh, okay, travel and adventure. There's definitely something around that. And guilty pleasures. Okay, so I'm getting very specific here now that there might be at least one friend or whatever. I think this is a feeling of someone who what you're doing is maybe becoming a new career. It's taking up something that's a new sort of focus for you or whatever. And they're used to like having fun and adventure and travel with you and you being available. And I think, and you know, and they try and sort of draw you in by, we can have fun, this sort of mirthfulness sort of thing. And, oh, you're taking the fun out of it is sort of the feeling around it. So I think there's at least, for some of you coming here, there is something about what you were doing that makes you less available, but this person was probably someone that you used to go on holidays with and that kind of thing. And again, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be a lover, it could be anything. But they are going to try and draw you in about whether you've taken the fun out of everything. So just be aware that's possible. It's also possible that this person is someone who does travel a lot, and this is part of the point, as I'd say, and they really like to spend time with their friends, sort of eating fine food, drinking fine wine. They like that side of life. So it also could just be telling, for some of you, a little bit more about the people that we're talking about, the people that are most likely to sort of push back a bit. And so also, let's pull a couple of astrology cards to see what astrological energy may be around these people. Part of fortune. Solar eclipse. Okay, wow. So we're not getting energy that tells us what signs they are. So and that's another reason why I think there's sort of like a number of people around you, and you might get aspects of all of these things in it. But these people are actually very, very ambitious. They have a real sense of like growth and so forth. So in some cases, this could be you going and striking out on your own. They feel like that is limiting some of what they could get working with you, being with you and so forth. But they are very focused on what they achieve and a lifestyle. There's a sense of a lifestyle around this, a sort of aspirational lifestyle. And they are likely to push back quite hard when they feel like that is being threatened. The solar eclipse with revolution, they're happy to take a battle. You're very kind-hearted. See, this is the point. This is sort of saying that you don't normally want to battle. You just want to grow and move forward. But if they feel this, they are likely to battle. But overall, I feel like it's more that they're very self-focused and they've got used to you being there. Not that they mean harm, but this is why you're going to have to be prepared to deal with a little bit of histrionics as you do it. But if you just let that ride through, they'll get over it because they are so focused on increase and they'll adjust and they'll get over it. And this is why I don't think for most of you, you will lose these friendships or whatever. But I think that you'll go through a bit of a turbulent time to get there. Okay, so let's have a look at what some spiritual gifts you particularly have. So these were also under the tarot card that brought you here that might help you in navigating this particular challenge. So we have Life Path 9, the Peacemaker, okay, and Indigo Child. So some of you may be an Indigo Child. This is the alpha generation of Indigo, born between, I can't read that from here, 1958 and 1968, so you may be in that group. In that case, you have a very strong connection. Anybody with Indigo, very strong starseed connection and so forth. So there's guidance. You are getting guidance. You are doing what you're meant to do. And with Life Path 9, you have the Peacemaker, and that's probably part of your challenge. It is also part of your strategy out. That's why if you write out the histrionics, you'll be able to make peace again. So I so strongly feel that you're not going to lose any friendships or relationships that matter to you. You have a natural ability to do this. It's part of your natural healing ability, but you are going to have to write it out, and you're going to have to not let your kindness halt you in what you're doing. We also have Weirboard, okay, and Wheel of Fortune. So Weirboard in this deck is about taking caution, being careful, because that type of sort of divination and so forth is a little bit riskier than others. I think most people would agree. So I think that's what this card kind of says. There is a possibility, of course, I think, that you could be a medium with Weirboard. There could be some spiritual connection and so forth. Though I feel like with you, it's primarily more likely to be starseed type of connection rather than, deceased loved ones, talking to you, but it could be either. But there is caution. So there is a caution around this, but I think the main caution is that things go in their cycles, and you are doing what you need for fate. Do not let your kindness and so forth get you manipulated and get you sort of stopping or halting what you're doing or slowing it down in any way. Be cautious about what comes to you. Understand where it's coming from. I think it is saying, as I say, it's not coming from a bad place necessarily, but it's coming from a place of somebody's disconcerted that you're changing and so forth. You're shifting what's going on the chessboard, and they're disconcerted about it because they kind of really are a little bit all about themselves, at least one or two people around you. And so have some caution. You don't actually, I think part of the strategy of this is you don't have to hit it head on. You don't have to have the argument, which for you would be something you don't want to do because you're more about peace and more about the heart. You just need to write it out. You need to say, I'm following my destiny, and hold to that and have that sense of destiny because you're not wrong. Okay, so let's get you some last sort of advice and so forth. Let's look at astrology for you, some astrology energy that will help you with winning this particular challenge, and allowing yourself to develop into who you're meant to be. So we have Capricorn, third quarter, and Sagittarius. Okay. So I think it's interesting. This is almost like a narrative of exactly what's going on, because Capricorn is sort of like the structures of the world, that which is established, that which is what is in place. So you are good within that. It's part of the reason why you can be a peacemaker. It's also part of the reason why if any of this is towards building a new business or something, you'll be very good at it. So use that energy. But it's also, as I say, what was established. And then we have the third quarter, which is about out with the old and in with the new. It's about releasing that which was not working. And for you, it's mainly about you, but it will have some of those issues around people that you need to deal with. But use your understanding about where you came from to help you work out how to navigate that, because you're meant to be more free to be yourself. Sagittarius is the most freedom-oriented sign. It's very philosophical. It's very sort of spiritual as well. And it's very creative and moves forward. And this picks up the horse energy, I think. It picks up that sense of progress, moving forward, all of that kind of thing. Could be something, as I say, very creative about what you're doing. So see this as the narrative. Your understanding of the environment that you're in helps you release what isn't working anymore so that you can be free to be who you are. Okay, so let's get a couple of other pieces of advice that could have astrology, could have sort of different sort of spiritual entities or processes, and then we're going to finish off with a couple of angel energies to help you. So we have Jupiter and Venus. Oh yes, because this is you. You are so kind. This is what sort of like has been kind of really strongly coming out in this reading overall. You do come from the heart, and there's nothing wrong with that, and there's a great beauty to what you do, and you will succeed in this. It is about your expansion. It is about blessings. It is about all the things that Jupiter brings. But Jupiter can also be excessive. So it is, I think, tilting towards going to be a little bit of excessive pushback. Just stay in the beauty and the love energy that you have. Let it ride through. Jupiter will protect you because it's a very protective energy. And speaking of protection, to finish off the reading, pile one, I'm just going to draw a couple of angel cards to see any other angel support you have or energies that Spirit wants you to know around your challenge to become more of who you are, which is what this really is all about. Angel of Patience and Angel of Families. So many of you, this could be around what your family expects of you with that. That is definitely protecting family connections. And so if this is around that, then I think there's a protection. But it may also be about finding who is your true family and having that connection and who will support you. Some of this may take time, and I think that this angel is here because there is a real sense of momentum for you, but you're going to have patience with the people who are pushing back. Because as I keep saying, I don't feel like they're doing it from a bad place, but you do have to have patience with that because you're a little bit further down the road than they are. They're kind of more stuck in the past, and they like the way the past was, and it was fun, and it was serving them. You're further down the path. You're going to have to wait for them to catch up. I do think that most of them will come through this. And as I say, if they don't, then it was time to let it go. It was time to sort of move on and find the true connections for you. So I wish you well with this because I think there's a beautiful energy that you're going to bring the more and more you embrace who you are. And I think that you have the true heart that can go through this and understand other people and empathise, but not be waylaid anymore by their needs. So I hope that resonated for you. I hope that it's helpful. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you care to share about this, love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So these cards are to give us a bit of a sense about what is the challenge or battle or competition that you are facing at the moment and set to win, so that you can make sure that you've come to the right reading, that you can resonate with it and so forth. And certainly, if you come to the right reading, you are in a battle of some sort. I think it is a battle that feels either like political or organisational or around a community issue or around a spiritual battle potentially. There's a very strong spiritual connection to it. It feels like major issues, major changes in some way, either in your community or even on the world stage. There's a lot of power involved in this. Your communication skills are vital in all of this, and it is both your communication skills with Anzus, and the capacity to be a messenger and to be an inspiration to others, but also finding the right people around you to be mentors, supporters, coaches, cheerleaders, even potentially if you are taking on a position where you are going to be seen in the world and be a messenger of change in some way, the people who ultimately could be your media or PR agents. I mean, this is the level of power around this is significant. We have Gaia, which is about creation, the creation of the world, and we have Shiva, which is about destroyer. It is the cycles. The energy that comes off this, and then we have Commander Ashtar, which is starseed connection. So it certainly feels like people who come to Pile 2, that you are the people who maybe are starseeds. You're here with a real mission. You're here with a real message. And it is about high stakes stuff. It doesn't, as I say, have to be as high stakes as the entire world, but it could be. It kind of the energy of this is like someone like a Greta Thunberg. It's that kind of, I'm not saying Greta could be watching this, I doubt it, but it's that kind of energy. It's the sort of feeling of a really powerful message that has got to do with high stakes. And so it's very much about a cause. This is not about you competing or having a battle to be the best sort of athlete or to be the best sort of creative inspiration, though you may well have very creative energy, and it may be how you do it. It may be through music, poetry, song, movies, or whatever that you actually send this message out. But the underlying battle that you are in is about a cause that has to do with understanding the cycles of creation and destruction and having them work in a positive way, a way that's good for the world, a way that's good for the people around you. So you're on a big mission in whatever level of your life you're doing this. And if it's really at a lower level, it may well be that this is the first step in doing this as part of who you are here to be. So this is a significant degree of power that is operating here, but you have a significantly strong communication, inspiration, creative energy, and a significant connection potentially to your ancestors and spirit guides in that way, but also potentially to interdimensional realms, because you're not here just for a fun time. I hope that you do enjoy your life, but you're not just here for a fun time. There's something very earnest about you. So, okay, not a small order thing. If that resonates for you, then let's go to the next level, which is looking at tarot. And we're going to look at a couple of things. The first thing is what does this mean to you at the moment? What is this really to you? And then we're going to ask for Spirit's advice about how to strategically navigate this particular challenge, whatever it is. So firstly, Spirit, what does this mean? Like what are the stakes in a sense for pile 2 around this particular challenge, battle that they're trying to win and are primed to win? Okay, so this interesting, we've got a couple of 5s and a couple of 4s. And in tarot, they're sort of like tricky energies to deal with quite often. Sometimes, I mean, the 4 of Wands, when it's the right way up, can be, everything sort of happy and great teamwork. When it's reversed, it's sort of difficulties and so forth. This, I think, is part of your role. Part of what you're going to use your communication skills for is the person who can come in, negotiate, peacemake, that kind of thing. And to reduce issues and conflicts at their earliest stages before they've really blown up, because you can see the consequences and the stakes. So you're sort of someone who, with your friends, with family, with a workplace or whatever, you can see when there's sort of like with the 5 of Swords here, sort of like kind of intellectual battles, and the 5 of Wands, sort of like egotistical battles that are maybe sort of like really pushing stuff because that's reversed, like people really wanting to be seen. 4 of Wands reversed, petty sort of arguments. 4 of Cups, people not feeling that they've got their fair share. There's something in here where you can go in and you can see it in the very early stages. You're very, very able to pick up and listen and see what's going on, and you are getting downloads that tells you that. So you would be able to read a room incredibly. And so this feels like it's in a workplace or in a community group or something like that, or it could be in family or friendship circles as well. But part of this is that you want to be recognised for the fact that you can see and do that. One of the challenges for you is that you almost have to sacrifice some of being seen to do it, because it looks as though you are in a lot of environments and dealing with a lot of issues where there is a lot of ego involved. And so you've got to kind of somehow get the recognition for the fact that listening to you makes sense, that you could be a mediator, that you can help, and that you have something to offer, but equally not trigger a reactionary response from people where it's kind of like, well, who are you to tell us that, and who are you to have a view, and so forth. So you have to do a very fine balancing act, and it matters to you to know that you can do that. I do feel with most of you, it's like, I think most that have come here, some may be very advanced and you may be on a very big stage at the moment, but like I think for many of you, there's a sense that you're really just starting to do this, and part of this is proving to yourself you can do it. So you're going through certain things like this, you're dealing with it. You could be in a workplace and you deal with mediating and helping people out to resolve issues, and team leading, and you might be going and studying things around that, because I think you're wanting to sort of really prove to yourself to some degree that what you instinctively feel, which is this is what you're here for, that you are here for it. And by doing that, you're going into these sort of battles to prove it to some degree. Now, I believe intrinsically with the sort of cards we saw before, that's what you're here for, and you will be very, very skilled at it. But it feels like for most of you, you're at that point. If you've been doing it for quite a while, it's like there's a very big step up coming. And when that comes, you want to know that you're ready. So to some degree, honing your skills around doing this is for you to sort of be recognised so that you get that opportunity, but also for you to be able to recognise it in yourself. So what can Spirit give in terms of advice for the strategic approach? I mean, you're pretty strategic anyway, I've got to say, but what could be the strategic advice that Spirit would give you around getting to this point where you feel comfortable and confident to go to whatever level this is and to win whatever the battle is, and also to get the recognition so people will take you seriously? There's a lot of gravitas around you, but it's like maybe you don't yet fully see it. So okay, so Spirit is saying that the environments that you're in, they're very contentious, they're very egoic, they're very philosophical, that some of what you can do and some of what makes you powerful is leading with the heart. and showing that you can empathize and understand and so forth, and possibly trigger memories in people of who they really wanted to be, what they believed in, and so forth. So this has a classic sort of feeling of like a group of people who were doing some sort of, and this is just an example, community organizing, for instance, and somewhere along the way, what they were trying to do has got lost in who's doing it best, and what is the particular political thing that they're trying to push of the day, or whatever it might be. Somehow the original vision, which was to help other people, has been lost. So by reconnecting people to what did they want to do, and it is in fact the classic thing for the excellent negotiator, because the reality is you don't go into a negotiation or a mediation and tell people all the reasons they're wrong and they go, oh right, okay, whatever you say. You actually reconnect them to a way that they save face, and they can see that they can recalibrate and be true to who they are and true to their vision of themselves. So the Spirit is saying that ability that you have, make sure that you use that. Connect people to what their original vision was, what is in their heart. Let them feel that there is a sense that things have only just begun, and so things can be done, and that decisions don't need to be made immediately. So there's something about the issue that you're dealing with at the moment that there is time to recalibrate. So giving people that sense, giving people time out, and giving yourself time out to some degree. I am getting with the Hermit here. I had a feeling with this that for some of you, if you're not feeling completely confident about doing this, the Hermit feels to me like almost study and researching and like quiet contemplation before you go into the scenario and so forth. Or potentially, if you're connecting to spirit, meditation as a way to ground yourself and bring this really strong communication energy through in the most positive way. So doing a meditation and asking your guides to clarify and purify your communication so that you can reconnect people to their heart. So there's something of you going within, either to learn something more that helps you in this, or to connect with your spirit ancestors or your starseed interdimensional connections and so forth, so that you can bring things back to first principles really and refocus people. So I don't think in most cases that the challenges you have are with innately bad people. It's people who have maybe lost sight of the things that they really did care about because of great nature of change, politics, maybe celebrity. It just depends on what level you're working at, or within an organisation, competition and so forth. So it really is just recalibrating back to understanding what it is about you that is such a great communicator. Okay. So let's have a little bit of a look about who your main challengers, combatants, arguers might be. So I'm going to just use different decks that have personal characteristics, and I'm going to use that hopefully to help you identify where some of the main pushback might be, or where some of the main you need to bring them back to their heart might be. And then also potentially to give you a bit of an idea about what they might do in response when they're still in resistance before you've kind of broken through. So first deck. No eventuality. Okay. So one of the things, some of the people that will push back, and this is why you probably need to reconnect them back to their heart, have a real need, and this is the ego stuff, to be the smartest person in the room. There is a thing that is called the smartest person in the room syndrome, where you are dealing with groups of people and somebody just needs to always one up and say that they are going to be natural combatants with you anyway. And usually the way to deal with that is to be able to acknowledge that they brought something really great to the table, but refocus it back to what you're trying to do. Like if somebody's sort of trying to one up about, I've got the better philosophy, that's good. How does that connect with what you're really trying to do at a heart level and for other people? It's sort of like acknowledge, but then re-steer them. So that is, there's something around that. And I think you are around other people who have very strong intuition and so forth. It may well be people who you've talked with about spiritual things, and that you know that they have similar sorts of abilities. So there's something about that for people who may push back a bit, and they tend to think that everything is just inevitable. Things are just going to go the way. You can't really change anything. You can't really have this outcome. There's a kind of a sense around them of pessimism. And whether it's because they're the world-weary warriors who've really tried to do exactly what you're trying to do now, and they kind of think, so it's like they may be older than you, I'm getting, in some, and like, I've tried all that and it doesn't work. So trying to re-trigger their curiosity about a different approach could be helpful. It's like they're kind of checked out. There's disinterest here. It's like, really nothing changes. We keep trying, nothing changes. So some of what you need to communicate is to revive their sense of why they were doing it and how they might do it and so forth. All right, let's get another deck. Played. And indigo. Yeah, definitely. I think there's something quite spiritual about what you're doing here. Even if you're working, as I say, in politics or in the environment or something like that, there's a very strong spiritual connection. And I think you're around people who also have a spiritual connection. So, and there is sometimes ego around spiritual stuff. So I just think there's sort of like understanding and acknowledging you're dealing with peers, that if you are someone, what you're bringing to the table is this great communication and this sort of capacity to find the connections and where people meet. It's doing it, but understanding that they also have something very valuable to bring. So I think some of the resistance might be that they feel that if you get too recognized, that, are you therefore the person who is the strongest in the group? And I think so part of this is to go, we're all working together for something and we all bring something to it. These people are often very independent, could appear laid back. See, this might be here. They might either come across as like, it'll work out, it's fine, these things just happen, it's a cycle, or it doesn't matter what we do, it's just going to go this way, so don't sweat it, sort of thing. There is a sense here that maybe there's a detachment from it because of a feeling of like eventuality, everything's going to happen in a particular way, or, I'm not going to really be fighting. I've fought for so long. It takes too much out of me and so forth. Okay, let's use another set of cards for a bit more information. Okay, tan complexion, that's very specific. Okay, narcissistic. All right, so I do think that with most of the people that you're around, they probably come from the right place and they do have spiritual connections and they have many sort of similar skills to you and all of that kind of thing. But this is telling us that there is, within the ego, there are some people where it's all about them. And so if any of this energy is coming from that, then it's not just a kind of, I'm a world weary sort of fighter on the battle and I'm kind of like, I'm not going to be as enthused because I don't want to get hurt again type of thing. It's much more, I know better than you. So you may be dealing with someone like that as part of this energy. Or it could be that you see that's what's causing the conflict that you're trying to resolve, sort of one or more narcissists sort of clashing. And so finding the way around the people who aren't narcissistic, who are more in their heart and that can actually resolve things, may be necessary. Tan complexion, say, very specific. For some of you, that might identify someone around this. So we're also going to use an astrology deck to see whether there's any astrological energy that we can glean about this person or these people. This is interesting. It came up for somebody else. Solar eclipse. And the 12th house. Okay. So I just think this is, in this case, I think all of you are in a very kind of revolutionary change, save the world, take it through the chaos into something, a new order, whatever it might be. You're all involved in that at some level. And so these people are also there. It's sort of like it's the people that you are going to be dealing with may be the other people who are on the cause with you, but it's like recalibrating it back, and they have power and they have abilities. So it's not an easy thing, but Spirit is reminding you that you have significant communication ability, and as such, an inspirational ability. You can win, because this whole thing is about what can you win with, so you can certainly do that. They are likely, I think, what will happen is that if you don't fall into the narcissistic games, you don't fall into the who's the smartest person, and you keep bringing the group more and more and more back to the heart, anybody who isn't sitting in the space of the heart, who is there for narcissism, they're just going to leave. They're likely to, first of all, detach. You're likely to see it in a group that they aren't talking anymore, they're sort of sulking a bit, but I think that they will just leave. So that's going to be part of what happens. Just by having that patience and sort of moving through it, you will find that eventually it sorts itself out. Okay, so let's have a look at some spiritual gifts you have to help in this particularly high stakes environment that you're in. And you are very spiritual, so this will be interesting to see. So firstly, we've got talk radio platform. So that's actually more about how to use your community, and TV news media. Like, you guys, If you aren't already known, you're going to be, because there's something about your message. That's why I got it right from the beginning. That's on a much bigger stage, and your communication skills are off the charts. So there is going to be a point, if it hasn't happened already, when you are using various forms of social media, the broader media and whatever to help with this cause, and your inspirational ability and so forth, you will be a natural there. And this may also be partly what makes this person leave, because they may not be as good in front of the camera as you are. You're meant to be known. All right. We also have ornithomancy and candle. So this is talking about keeping an eye out for omens. So there is going to be signals and information that comes to you. So in this card, it's sort of a flight of birds is coming as a kind of an omen for you. And with that sort of terminology, it may very well be things like birds in the sky and so forth that you see. But this card really talks about watching out for omens, so that you know, you get that precursor to whatever's coming, and that then brings the illumination. I'm also getting candle magic may work for you, or you may be sort of someone who can like feel the spirits and energy coming in when candles sort of behave. You know, they say that, you know, when spirits are around, candles can often burn much brighter or much higher or flicker a lot more and so forth. So that may well be something you can use to help commune and know that you've connected with the sort of spiritual support that you have around you, because you are doing something big and you're going to need it, I think. All right, so given all of that, let's look at some advice for you. So firstly, some astrological advice, things about you astrologically, or astrological energy or approaches that could help you win this battle. Waxing crescent moon, Virgo, and water. Okay. So this is definitely saying that you're at this point where you're starting to assess this and you're setting intentions. And I think it is the time of the hermit that we looked at before, the time to sort of go within and decide what is it you're really trying to achieve. One of the things you have to do when you're the sort of person you are is make sure that you're very clear about your intentions, and then always make sure that what you're doing takes you to that intention, because you may have to course correct any number of times to deal with the people and the issues around you. So you need to be very clear on that. I think that was really what the hermit was talking about, and very precise about what it means in terms of the material world with Virgo. Virgo is highly analytical, it's highly structured, it's a great planner. So there's definitely, the more that you can do that and use that sort of energy, the better. You may well have Virgo strongly in your chart, but if not, those sort of energies will help you. And the tarot card with Virgo is the hermit. So there is that going within to set intentions, but calibrating it all with what matters to your heart, because that's your message. You're always going to have a message in whatever way you bring it out, which is about the heart. And you may also have Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces strongly in your chart. I wouldn't be surprised if you did in the third house, because that is the house of the communicator. So that's the communicator with heart, but you don't have to. All right, let's look at another deck that has both sometimes astrology and also other sort of spiritual energies for a little bit more advice from Spirit before we close out with a couple of angels to support you in this particular challenge or battle. You may have a battle with these sort of cards. Warrior, yeah, that's you. Taurus, okay. So you are a warrior. You're here to be a warrior. It may be wearying on occasions. You may be working with other warriors, and some of that energy, as I say, may just be world weariness when you're not dealing with the more narcissistic types that are around this, who just want to call themselves social justice warriors by, you know, virtue signaling on Twitter but not doing something. I mean, you're kind of going to come across both people in the sort of field that you're working with. So you will come across other warriors because you are a warrior. Taurus would suggest that you do need to focus also on making sure your life is comfortable and you enjoy life. I think Taurus is all about that. It can be a bit stubborn, so there is a bit of a thing here about make sure, and this might be going within, that what you're doing is going towards what you want. Don't react to narcissists or people who are pushing back on that level. You know, kind of go head to head. Always remember those skills that you have to not be stubborn and to be flexible. But this is definitely also saying enjoy your life. You know, you're not just here for everybody else. You're not just here for the cause. You actually should do whatever you can to enjoy life, and remember what it was that touched your heart to want to fight for the world in the first place. Okay, So lastly, let's just ask for a couple of angels to be watching over you and what particular energy they're watching over you to help you at the moment. This is interesting. That came up before as well too. Some of you may have come to 2 readings. It's interesting if you did. So Angel of Families and Angel of Solitude. Yeah, there definitely is a message here where you need to take time out. You need to look within. There is a real strategic message here, and this angel is here to help you do that and to give you the space to do that, because it is possible in such a high stakes thing to go off course because you're dealing with a lot of competitive energy, and particularly around that more narcissistic energy. So always make sure that you worked out what your cause is and you're comfortable within. And there's something about family. So maybe some of the battle is with your family, but equally it might be that your family is the way to recalibrate back to your heart. And it's also, I think, your soul family, your starseed family, your ancestral sort of spiritual family that are there for you and are watching over you to make sure that you feel protected and part of something, rather than always having to be there. Because there's something almost solitude-ish about a warrior, but, you know, and they're traveling and they're doing all these sort of things and they don't necessarily have a space just for themselves. But if you think about the Taurus energy there and our families, it is definitely saying, don't lose sight of that. Allow that for yourself. You deserve it. Okay, pile 2, you are people that are needed in the world, very, very, very much, but there's a lot on your shoulders. So Spirit definitely believes you have everything you need to win, but you do need to look after yourself a bit as well too, I think, the message here. So I hope that that resonates. I hope that it was helpful. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share about it in the comments, I'd be fascinated to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So these cards are meant to give a bit of a sense about what the particular challenge is that you're primed to win. And then we'll use tarot to look at, you know, that in more detail. But this is meant to give a bit of sense about what this reading is likely to be about, so that you can confirm that you've come to the right reading, that you feel the connection. This is fascinating. One of the most fascinating things I think I've seen so far in all the readings I've done, because we've got the same God coming up twice in the one sort of basic map with Thor. And Thor is a really interesting god because he's the Norse god. He's a god of war. He's a god of action more than anything, getting things done, clearing things out, doing stuff. There is definitely something about this challenge which is unsticking that which is stuck, sort of clearing the air, moving forward, getting going, like maybe after a period of time where you felt very constrained and not able to do something, or where there were roadblocks and people had objections all the time. Thor gets things done. The other thing about Thor that's very interesting is he's a poet as well. And I get a very strong sense here that for some of pile 3, there is something about creativity, poetry, writing, speaking your truth. And it has a very strong spiritual aspect, even if what you're dealing with is very sort of organizational or political or something like that, or even if it's just dealing with getting out of stuck patterns around families or around friendships or in a relationship. There is a call to action and to understanding that you are very well primed to take that action, because you have this beautiful eloquence of how you can speak, and you have enormous spiritual maturity. But you may be a little bit afraid of yourself, or you may be afraid of overwhelming people, or you may be afraid that, are you up to it? And certainly if you're thinking, am I up to it? You are. So Spirit wants to tell you that. Like, I think that's the double Thor. It's like you are called to action at this point, and you do need to move through and unstick yourself and unstick the situation, and you are the person to do it. And not to doubt your spiritual heft. I mean, you've got Merlin here. So, you know, one of the great sort of magicians, you know, sort of high magicians, manifestation, alchemy, incredible spiritual gifts and spiritual development. And you also have the king of the red-tailed hawk, Tawadi, which is around spiritual maturity. It is around being more mature than many other people around you spiritually. So for some, you may be in a spiritual group, or you might be in a spiritual practice, or you may be learning certain spiritual things, and it will be interesting to see later what the spiritual gifts are, where you're actually quite a lot further advanced than the people around you. And it may be that you're getting held back and you really have to kind of take action. But that poetry, that suggests that you can do it and you can alleviate the fears of people around you. So Spirit is saying there is something that has been holding you back. the competition around spiritual development, maybe the competition more generally where your spiritual maturity actually allows you to move forward and deal with it. And it could be really in any aspect of life. It'll be interesting to see a little bit more detail with the tarot, but it could be literally around spiritual development, as I said. It could be around creative endeavors. Otherwise, it's just around things where things have got stuck because of fear. And you can bring this energy to break through that fear with Kali and with Thor's sort of, as I say, eloquence and just capacity to get things moving. So this is just something that's stuck. So if you've come to the right reading, whether it's you that's got stuck because you've underestimated yourself compared to others, or whether you've been stuck because people underneath kind of sense you're ahead and they don't want to admit it, or whether it's just in developing yourself or some situation that you're in, something is stuck, this is an absolute call to action. Spirit is saying you have everything you need. You are going to win this. We will talk about what it means to you now, and we will talk about Spirit's advice around strategy. But it's definitely such a strong energy to say the time is now. Okay, so let's have a look. Firstly, with tarot, about what this really means to you, a little bit more about what's the stakes involved in this before we then ask for Spirit's strategy for you. Okay. Wow, yeah, the time is now, all right. Okay, so this is pretty specific. It is definitely saying part of this is you standing in your own power. So if you're in a workplace, for instance, it might be time to start looking for whether you can set up a side hustle and eventually move into having your own business, being your own boss. Certainly there is an opportunity around this to make money and to establish yourself to become the sort of self-made person. That's what is at stake here. It's using all these skills that you have and your capacity for action and eloquence to achieve something where you can stand very autonomously. So it could also be if you are in a relationship and you just know you're being stuck and you're being held back, it's time to move out. It's time to be on your own because you'll become more on your own. Either way, if you don't take action, things will become unstuck anyway, but that won't be in your control. Now, I do think Spirit would back you that you will know what to deal with it if that's the case. But with the Tower is a card that people get a little bit worried about. They think, oh my God, everything's going to fall apart. But that's really not what happens for the most part. It's more that which is not working and that which is stuck is cleared away. So it's very much the energy of Thor. And I think what Spirit is saying is that you can become the agent of Tower. You have that opportunity to, in a sense, orchestrate what happens with this in your life and how you respond to it. And the Tower energy, when you go with the change, can be incredibly beneficial. It can sweep everything away. But it's classically if somebody resists it. So if the thing being stuck is you not wanting to take action because of fear, for instance, then it's classically when things do sort of go wrong out of the blue. Like, so you do lose a job because suddenly there's redundancies in an organisation, or you don't get a loan that you needed, or whatever it might be. So I think Spirit is very strongly saying what's at stake here is you deciding to be the agent of change and action rather than having it happen to you. And it looks as though you've been in an environment that has had quite a bit of conflict, though I think that you're starting to sort of come out of that with the Five of Wands reverse. The Five of Wands to me always is conflict, but it's kind of petty. It's not really big time conflict. The change is fairly big time here that you want to move to, but it's almost been like Spirit has been nudging you. So some of this challenge is about you backing yourself because you've kind of had doubts and fears that someone like you didn't really need to have. There's also within the environment also nudging you is that things are out of balance and your forward momentum has been pulled back. I mean, whether you've done it yourself or not, the Knight of Wands the right way up is a very Thor-like action energy, but with it reversed, it's something. The difficulty of the environment that you're in, your own sort of sense of strength, but also sense of fear kind of being out of balance, something is stopping that forward momentum. So Spirit is saying what's at stake here is you being in the driver's seat, changing your life and becoming more and more autonomous and more your own master in whatever form that means to you. That's what's at stake here. It's you coming into who you really are in a very active and very material way. So let's ask what Spirit's advice around strategy is for you. So there's a couple of strong messages here. Firstly, with the Hermit and the Moon, going back to Merlin and to the sort of earth warrior sort of sense of spiritual maturity. Part of your strategy has to be connected to your spiritual beliefs, your spiritual abilities, and really backing those and understanding those, not doubting them in any way. There could have been some competition around all of that around you, but don't let that stop you. That's the first bit of advice. The second bit of advice around dealing with the fear. So I think the Kali thing is you, your own sort of insecurity, your own fear, not really understanding what you really bring to the table. Spirit is telling you with the Fool reverse, this is not your first rodeo. You know how to deal with this stuff, whether it's in other lives or whether it's in this life. You are very pragmatic. You're not a wide-eyed innocent. You are very mature. You are very developed spiritually and more generally. You have everything that you need. But what does need to occur is at the moment you haven't necessarily fully defined what this looks like materially. So the end goal for you, I think, is this sort of material freedom, autonomy, self-mastery, that kind of thing. But Spirit is saying the thing that might be holding you back is that there's all this energy and call to action, but you haven't fully defined what the end goal looks like. It's like if you know what the light on the hill is, then you can take any number of roads to get there and you can course correct when you need to, because you just always say, does this take me towards my goal? Does this take me towards my goal? But to do that, you need to define what that is. And Spirit is saying you might need to be a little bit more selfish about this than you tend to be, because it looks as though strategically you're always about the kind of generosity to others and making sure everybody else is looked after and all that kind of thing. And some of that comes from your spiritual maturity, but that is fine once it is calibrated with what you're really trying to achieve. You are here to some degree because of your spiritual maturity to sort of help support, teach, all those other things, other people, and maybe even help some of them through change. This might ultimately be something that you do as a business. But you need to sort that out first, because otherwise the sort of flow of material support might get out of whack. And then you can find your sort of spiritual sort of side sort of feels a little bit uneasy and so forth. And that kind of probably is what gets you stuck. So Spirit says, be very, very clear on what it is that your outcome in this material 3D world is for you. Calibrate on that. And then you can use this wisdom that you have and your spiritual connection to get there. Okay. So part of this reading is looking at who might be people that are challengers, competitors, or whatever. And I think with you, I mean, partly it's you, but this isn't the part of the reading we're going to look at, because I think partly it's you really backing yourself. But I do feel from this that some of the issue that you have is that there are people who are competitive about who is the most knowledgeable, who is the most eloquent. It's a competition of skills, I think, and maybe spiritual ability. So what I want to do now is I want to use a few decks to bring out some personality characteristics of one or more people that might be competitors or challengers with you, and what you might experience from them and how they might play their cards in this particular game. So we have tune and concentrativeness or focus. Okay, so for some of you, there could be something musical about this. You could be in a musical environment, that kind of poetic eloquence. Some of you may literally be in some sort of industry around that, and you may have competitors around who's the most resonant, who's the most in tune. In tune also spiritually. Like I do get a sense that some of you are around other spiritual people and there's a kind of a competition for who's the most psychic or something. So some of them may try to say they're more in tune, you're not quite there yet, try and give you all the 10 reasons why they are more advanced or whatever, but you are actually further advanced than these people who are competing with you. The very fact that they're trying to compete with you tells you that on some level they know this and they're trying to convince themselves. So there's something about who's the most in tune around this, who resonates the strongest, and there's focus. I think that they could suggest to you that you will act before you know what you need to do. So this in fact could be someone who's not a competitor. It could be actually someone who's trying to help you, because so I think there's it could be either, I mean, because they could be also trying to get you in tune with what you're doing. So this could in fact be a coach as well. But I do think there's some that might compete with you. But I think this energy here is showing that there's someone who might be trying to help you do what Spirit's talking about. It might even be a spirit guide. It might not be a person. To focus on what it is that you need so that you move forward. Your action has that kind of direction to it. All right, let's use a different deck. Okay, we've got Ox and teal. Yeah, I think we're getting two different people. This feels like two different people to me. So there's a person over here, as I say, is sort of maybe in the same field as you, and there's a little bit of competition around it about who's the most in tune. They may be born in the year of the ox, if you know their birth date, so the years are there. The ox as sort of a personality is diligent, hardworking. They're reliable, they're patient, but they're very materialistic and they can be stubborn. So they're not a bad person, but they sort of have this sort of sense of, earnestness about things and so forth. They may be the sort of person who holds you back by sort of saying we have to have all the sort of everything in place before we move forward. They may in fact even be someone, even if they're psychic and all that kind of thing, that on another level they don't trust it within themselves, and so they won't trust it in you either. It's like, oh, this is nice, you come and watch a tarot reading or whatever, but life is life, and then we get on with life. There's something like that. There's something a little bit conservative about them. This person over here, who I think is maybe a coach or a support for you, is objective, but they're not sort of pushy. They're not going to push a view on you. They're just going to be supportive. But their advice, I think, is worth listening to, because I think it aligns with Spirit's advice, and it could be a spirit guide. Okay, let's pull another couple of cards. Multilingual. Sports and fitness. Yeah, coach. Yeah. I think that some of you, if you don't already have a coach, maybe look to see if you can get a coach, because I think that they will actually really help you focus where your energy and your ability can go. It's the thing about a coach is they don't tell you what to do. They ask you the questions that help you find your own direction. So I really think this is Spirit saying that you could be helped with getting someone who's a coach, either professionally or someone who just is a friend who has that kind of nature and that kind of way of looking at things. It's also possible that it's someone who's literally into sports and fitness as well. This person may be multilingual. If it's not literally multilingual, it might be just that they have a great facility with language, and so do you. So this also picks up this kind of competitive energy. This person's quite similar to you in many ways, and that can be an issue when you're trying to take action and define who you are in a more autonomous way. Okay, so let's finally pull a couple of cards from an astrology deck to look at these two people. Jupiter return. Provoker. Okay. So Jupiter return is a good time, generally for most people. When Jupiter returns to its natal placement, it's usually a time of expansion and luck and so forth. Could suggest this person is quite lucky, that when you sort of look at what happens in their life, they seem to be lucky, they seem to be fortunate, they seem to have fortune favours them. It might be part of the issue, because you may have connected with them because of that, and now needing to disconnect because you need to take yourself to the next level. They may also use some of their psychic ability to sort of really be able to kind of, pick the horses in a horse race or something. There's something around their energy which is about expansion and so forth. And, Jupiter can be kind and everything. This is not, as I say, I don't necessarily think the person is bad, but it's just they could hold you back because they kind of like to be number one. Over here, the Grand Cross Provoker, I think that's just this coaching energy. They will make you think differently. They will make you focus. They will make you really start to act. They will be your cheerleader. I think it's a very strong thing. You may, in fact, if you could see the two of your charts together, you may have a Grand Cross created, because they are at the call to action that is Thor. I'm actually getting, for some of you, it may literally be as a spirit guide, it might be Thor, the god Thor around you, because Thor is a provoker, and they will be a call to action, but will also, as I say, help you focus and work out how you want to compete and be that kind of coaching energy. So it's very specific. Not everybody is going to have Thor spiritually knocking on their door, but with this kind of energy, you could. So it may not be a person. If you can't think of a person, it may just be an energy you're getting. Okay, so let's have a look at what spiritual skills you have, because they're going to be significant, I would think, with those two cards to start with. So spiritual gifts that can help you in this battle. Meditation teacher, yoga instructor. Yeah, I think many of the people here, you probably are connected to some form of spiritual modalities, spiritual groups, and so forth. And you are very good at these things. You're very good at the meditative side of things, and the yoga kind of feels like it's sort of in the body and the natural world and so forth. You may be one of these things, or you may decide to do that as a business. It might be bringing the two things together in some way, in a unique way that you do it, that is how you succeed. But certainly you have those abilities and you're around that sort of practice. If you're not yet, then it will help you. Okay, we've got handwriting and geomancy. So handwriting in this deck is about authenticity. I think it's picking up the kind of sense around what is the spoken word, what does Thor bring, bringing your truth, bringing it with a poetic way and so forth. I feel like some of you may write things that people want to read, that learn from and so forth. It might also be that automatic writing works for you. I feel like you, in a meditative state, may in fact channel these spirits in terms of an automatic writing. Geomancy is all about time and patience. So it is saying you need to have patience as you go through this process. Thor is all about action, but you need that kind of moderating influence of your spiritual maturity to have the patience when steps, some steps will go fast and some will not. So just having that wisdom about just keeping the eye on the prize. That's why it was so important strategically to know what your final destination is. Okay, so to finish off, we're going to look at some astrology energy for you, because we had a look at the astrology energy around these other people, but we'll look at some astrology energy for you and some broader spiritual energy, and then we're going to see what angels are watching over you as you're going through this challenge, pile 3. So we have fixed signs, waning gibbous, and air. Okay. So the fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So you may have one or more of those strongly in your chart. If not, they're signs that once they are committed to something, they go for it. So I think there may be a message here of once you've determined what it is, you just go for it. You take action, do that, stay the course. Even if you have to course correct a bit, know what that light on the hill is, and you will have the energy and the drive to do it, particularly, as I say, with double Thor. Waning gibbous is all about the calm after the storm. So sort of that would suggest that there will be a bit of a storm as you go through some of this, that there will be a pushback, there will be a bit of competition, but it's a promise that you will get the calm after that and you will have gone through the transformation you need to do. And at that point, you will have a different perspective with it. You will have a different philosophy about how to use your spiritual wisdom and what you want to do next once you've sort of really established yourself. You may also find that things around Gemini, Libra and Aquarius in your chart are particularly activated once you've been through this particular challenge. Okay, using another deck that has sometimes astrology and sometimes spiritual avatars and various things like that, just for some other energy around you at the moment, pile 3. Siren, okay. And Guardian, okay. I'm actually thinking that's giving you a bit more information about these two people. This person that we talked about before that is a little bit competitive with you, they're quite attractive, I think. And there might be a siren call in what they do to stay working with them, staying in the group, whatever it is. So just be aware that the siren song can be very attractive, but it can also used to bring the sailors to the rocks and the sea. So it's not always the best thing to do. Listen to your guardian, listen to your coach. There is very strong energy guarding you and trying to take you to where you are meant to go. But maybe this person would sometimes use flattery, but it's flattery to control. So use that spiritual wisdom, guardianship that you have, and don't let them stop you. It's sort of, there's actually a feeling I'm getting with these two together of the story of Samson and Delilah, where there was Delilah who eventually chopped off Samson's hair and then took away his strength. So there's just this sort of sense of like, make sure that you don't let anybody take you off your course. Okay, so lastly, we're going to ask for a couple of angels that are watching over you and in what aspects they're watching over you as you go through this particular challenge, pile 3. Angel of manifestation. Angel of inner peace. Yeah, because you are meant to manifest something. This is the action. This is the spiritual stuff. This is the getting to the Nine of Pentacles. This is all about manifestation, and the angels are there to let, to make sure once you take the action and you back yourself that you can manifest what you want to manifest. And that brings you a kind of inner peace, because part of that fear energy and so forth was that you don't understand how advanced you are. And so part of this, once you do this, once you take action, once you stop prevaricating, once you stop listening to the siren call of people who are holding you back and you really just go for it, you're going to get a huge amount of inner peace, because you're going to have much more of a sense, a validated sense of who you are. So pile 3, really interesting energy around you, as I said, right from the beginning. Fascinating spread. I hope that helps. I hope that you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you have any comments, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome pile 4 to your reading. So these cards are meant to get a bit of a sense about what is the challenge or battle that you are primed to win, and then we will move into tarot to get more detail about what the stakes are and the strategy and so forth. And this has been an amazing set of readings, I have to say, because this is the second time that in a reading from 2 different decks, intuitively pulled, I've got the same god, which is really interesting. So the Norse god Loki, and in another reading there was a particular god that came out twice as well too. So I think this is pointing to some really big changes, challenges and so forth that are really important, given that that's occurring, and that there's a particularly strong message, a core message coming across. And there's 2 ways that I would read these cards. One is that you may be a typical type A personality, and you're always sort of, about your work, and you're always about your causes. And with St. Francis, you might always be about trying to sort of be for everybody, something, and be there for everybody and be selfless and all of that sort of thing. So there is a kind of workaholic sort of person with a cause, missionary sort of energy almost about it. And with Hathor, which is meant to be about fun and contentment and enjoying life and so forth, and with Loki, which is about play, and then with Pachamama, which is she with the Andean emerald heart, she's a divine mother figure, and so someone who guides and supports and makes sure that the world does not get too disrupted, that the ecosystems operate together. There is a message here for some of you: lighten up. What you are doing is wonderful, but if you actually took some time out to play and enjoy yourself and have a good time, everything will be fine, and so in fact it will make it easier and better for you to do this really divinely guided sort of mission that you have, and the things that you want to do, that the challenge for you is turning down the dial a bit and allowing yourself to enjoy life. So it's an internal thing. The other thing I get with the sense of Hathor, with the sort of sensuality and the beauty and so forth, and Loki with the shape-shifting trickster, and with being incredibly good at sort of music and words and all that kind of thing, is that some of you may be highly creative. And the challenge at the moment might be taking that creativity and making it something that you think has a heft around the world and that actually helps people, that it's not just about having the skill, but it's about doing something that has meaning and has legacy. So it's sort of like there's 2 very specific readings to this. One is stop working so hard, lighten up, give yourself a break. And the other is you're really brilliant, you're really, really creative. How do you use that in a way that you feel is actually giving back to the world? So it's one or other of those, and it could be both. There could be a bit of both in you, or it could be that there are people who've come to this reading that fall into one or other of those camps. We may find out more when we look at the tarot. If it really says where the stakes are, we might get more of a sense about whether this is an internal take the pressure off yourself. The biggest challenge for you is just allowing yourself to enjoy life and feeling like, you don't have to hold up the world, almost like Atlas or whatever. Or whether it is that, you have some incredible talent and incredible ability, and you've kind of had fun with it and, done all sorts of different things with the shape-shifting sort of energy of Loki, but maybe it's time now you recognise that you were given these gifts for a reason, and you now want to do something that helps others. So let's ask Tarot to see if we can see whether it's both or one of those in particular, because the first thing we want to ask Tarot is, what are the stakes? What does this mean to you at the moment, this battle? Or challenge. I think it's more like a challenge. I don't think you've got a battle, really. I think it's a challenge within yourself. Is it the challenge to to have fun, or is it the challenge to take your incredible skills to a level that isn't just to have fun, but is to do something more meaningful? Okay. Okay, I think for the greater majority of you, it's that first one. It is about lightening up and having fun. I will look at it from the other perspective. But firstly, the reason I say that is that this looks like you have been so focused on the material that it's almost suppressed you, and it's suppressed your joy in what you're doing. So it's like whether you're in a grind, whether you're in, like trying to work 2 jobs or whatever it might be, there's something where you're just so focused on what you're doing that even your sense of enthusiasm or commitment is starting to wane. There's a sign of you that knows, I've got things out of balance. I'm not happy anymore in what I do. I don't feel like what I'm doing really, I can sustain it on any level. And the call of your heart and the call of, the side of you that does want to enjoy and so forth is very strong, but you're trying to suppress it. So the challenge at the moment is you suppress it because you have such a sense of obligation to others and such a sense like, I think that some of you may be in a situation where on a very practical level, you have good reason to think that if you stop doing something, it will have real effects on people that you love and so forth. So it could be that you're in a situation where you are the only breadwinner in a family. And if you were to suddenly not work as much, that would be affecting other people. It's not, even though this card is telling you that you aren't as absolutely crucial as you're making yourself be, I think that there is something there. And I think there is something where you sort of sacrifice some of what you wanted to do to, provide for others or to win at a cause or whatever it might be. And because you're very clever and able to shapeshift and deal with it, people may see if you are not here, if you're not that person in this organization, if you're not this person in the group, if you're not this person in the family, that everything's going to fall apart. And so there's a certain degree of censure or disapproval or pushing against you doing that. So there could be some external stuff happening, but most of this is internal. It's interesting that all the cards except for one are internal sort of cards. The major arcana I see is more external. And to the degree that there is external pressure here with the moon reversed, then there are sort of secrets and people's motives aren't necessarily as clear as you might think they are. But for you, when on the internal level, you're suppressing your own knowledge about the fact that you're about to burn out. So the challenge for you is to not do that. Now, if it's the other and you have a lot of skills or whatever, but you are not feeling that you're using them in the right way, then this may be why there's a sense of impermanence around the material. You may feel like you're kind of doing something frivolous and you want to do something that is more close to your heart. But if that's the case, part of the challenge for you is navigating through what that would mean, the change. What would that mean? So it's like someone who wrote bestsellers, but they actually have a literary novel and they really want to do it. But is this going to kind of really throw everything up in the air? Are you able to change to something that really has some more heft to it in some way than maybe something that you've been writing before? It's just an example. Not to put down mass market books or anything, but it's just there's a shift in what you want to do and how you want to be seen. And so there's a question for you about, do I have the skills and the ability to do this? And Spirit will be saying, yes, you do, but you maybe do need to be careful about finding out more about the environment and how to navigate a different way of doing it before you just rush in. Because you could rush in with a beautiful cause, but the mechanisms around everything is so finely tuned with that ecosystem sort of feeling of that card that you actually don't succeed or that you sort of upset the apple cart a lot. Okay, so let's have a look at what Spirit suggests strategically for either of those scenarios, pile 4. Okay. So starting first, because I do think most of you, it's much more likely to be this. You're the workaholic, the linchpin. There's lots of people relying on you, blah, blah, blah. What Spirit is saying is there is a different perspective, a different way of doing things, and not to be too stubborn about it, because the hangman can be a bit stubborn sometimes. And there may be some delays. Everything might not happen instantly. If you are changing to have more time, it may not be that you could suddenly just drop everything and go on a 3-month holiday. It might be that you need to carve out that instead of working 10-hour days, you're only going to work 8-hour days. Or it might be that if you tend to give up one of your days on the weekend, you actually say, I'm going to take that back that day on the weekend. So it feels like things might take a bit of time. They could be incremental. And you can have both. It is saying that you can still be doing what you feel you need to do to support others, but you can also find a way to have time for yourself. You have the skills, you have the knowledge, you're not naive. You've got into this not because you're naive and people have snookered you into being the person who carries the weight all the time. It's because your degree of skills and knowledge, that's why you've taken it on. You've naturally taken it on, and you do actually have a bit of a workaholic nature. But you also, because of those skills and knowledge and understanding of how things work, you can start to think about it differently and make choices that allow you to also have some of this enjoyment energy as well. It is well within your power, and you can negotiate it. Once you've worked out what that looks like with the 7 of Swords, I feel like that's not about duplicity. I don't think you're dealing with people who are being deliberately duplicitous. It is about being able to negotiate and clarify what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. There will be a pushback because you've been so generous before, and you're going to have to be a little bit more strict about what time you put into things and having time for yourself. And there may be a little bit here where things come to the surface with the moon reversed when you're negotiating that, but stay the course. You can do this, is what Spirit is saying. Now, if it is about shifting from doing something that was lots of fun and skillful into something that is of more meaning, it does say this new perspective can be done. And again, you can do a bit of both. It's sort of like you could almost have, if you were a musician, you could have some music that was still light and fun, and then there could be some that actually really has a cause associated with it. Or you could give the proceeds of some of what you did to certain charities or causes, and then the rest towards what you need to keep the lifestyle that you want to have. Again, you are not new in this environment, and you will be able to negotiate what that looks like. But the distribution of the money, you may not make as much money in some aspects of this, or you may have debates around that, and again, that will surface. So either way, what Spirit is saying is that you really can do this. You just need to rethink how you're going to do it and then renegotiate it around those who are relying on you or who have expectations on you. Okay, so getting to those people, what we want to do in the reading now is we want to use various decks to look at personality aspects and so forth of people to see if you can identify those who might be, a competitor or a challenger. And I think in both of the cases, it's people who would feel like, are you going to still be meeting the expectations they have? So if it's people who are used to you being the workaholic, it might be other teammates, it might be your family in terms of money, it could be your friends who think that you provide in a particular way. Or if it is around you doing something more sort of socially conscious when you were sort of someone who was just all about the entertainment, it could be the sort of industry people you're dealing with and those who think, well, what's this going to do to the bottom line? So let's have a look at some personality characteristics. And this is a collective reading, so take from it what resonates, leave the rest. But it may help you identify some people around that are going to be part of the challenge and how they might respond in relation to this or what to look out for. So firstly, we have concentrativeness and eventuality. Okay, so I feel like this is, in either of those cases, there will be people who say, if you take your focus and your concentration and your time off this, eventually it's not going to work out the way you want. You're actually going to be writing an outcome that's not the outcome that we want. And what you need to come back with is that I have the skills and ability to split my focus or to have a bit of time to myself. And we need to stay curious and open because there are many, many, many ways to produce this product or to have this outcome or whatever. But if I focus too much, then the eventuality is I will lose my curiosity and interest. I will burn out. So I think that it's showing you that people will try and tell you if you take your eye off the ball, everything falls apart. But you can say, no, in actual fact, if I don't take some of this time out or if I don't change what I'm doing in some way, then I'm going to lose the focus and I'm going to lose the interest in it. And that will lose everything, not just change and shift things a bit. Okay, let's get some other aspects for you. South America, okay. And green, heart, healer, harmony, wealth. Okay. So some of you may be, or some of the people around this may be connected to South American countries. If not, I always think when I see a country, when I'm asking this sort of question, it may just say that there are different locations where this will have a different impact. So it suggests that you have a business or a creative gig or something that maybe has more than one location, and thinking some of the strategy might be where is the best outcomes for, in a sense, the least amount of work, if it's about getting some time out so that you can actually negotiate that without much of an issue to the bottom line. Or if it's around, I do want to do something that has a cause, but maybe it's in a particular location, South America or somewhere else, that cause is how I want to take my communication and my creativity and everything to help with that. So I think there may be some sort of issue around location with the people and whether you're focusing where they want you to focus. And there is a sort of sense where they're going to appeal to your heart, because you are, with St. Francis there, you are very much a softie. Under all the sort of light, fun, energy, and like the workaholism and all of that sort of stuff, the type A personality stuff, you are incredibly of the heart. So it is worth knowing that some of them will probably try and pull on your heartstrings in one way or the other to get you to do what they want you to do. And I don't think, it's interesting, none of these readings have I felt like there was a competitor that was really malicious or anything. I just feel it's people who don't like the shift, the challenge, the change that's coming up. Okay, let's get another couple of cards. Adolescence. Problem solver. Okay. So some may try and say to you, you're being a little bit childish if you want to have fun. So one of the things that could come back is they could say, really grow up. There could literally be something that's said to you, and that's not a valid thing to say. The other thing that I would read with adolescence is, well, there could be family issues for some of you. It could be that you have children who are in their adolescence, and that is one of the factors that you need to take into account. But remember, this is not throw the baby out with the bathwater stuff. This is finding and negotiating a way to deal with it. It's not, and then being able to balance both requirements and so forth. If it's not either of those things, then adolescence always speaks to me of a time where people are at a high emotional pitch. So it's likely to suggest that people, if you are making these changes and shifting, people are likely to respond, at least initially, very emotionally. But remember with adolescents that they tend to respond emotionally and then half an hour it's all gone. So it may be a burst of emotional pushback, I think. Some, almost on the other side, will try and say, oh no, there's another way I can solve the problem for you. There's another way that you can take your message out and not just be about fun, or there's another way that we can help. Maybe we just give it to charity and everything, and you don't really have to change anything you're doing. Or yeah, you do probably need a bit of time out, but maybe do that in a few months' time once we've got this. Is someone who may actually try and stop some of this sort of change that you want to do by giving you a better strategy. But you are more than capable of working out your own strategy. Okay, let's see some astrology energy around these people. Fire element, desire. Oh, solar eclipse revolution. This has come up in a few of them. There's some big changes around this, and there's big pushback. So I actually think that this really does tilt towards a lot of people in this. Well, it is both the workaholic and the creative. It's going to be one or both, or either, depending upon who has come to this reading. There's a lot of creative energy around this. You are around highly creative people who have very strong egos and very strong desires, and they want outcomes and so forth. And they want to cause change in some way, but it's their change. So they, and who may take too much change as a revolutionary act. So it might be, it sort of makes me think of, various sort of celebrities who have, musicians, for instance, someone like George Michael, for instance, not George Michael being this, it's more like you being George Michael in this analogy, having all this talent and having done the sort of things with Wham, and then sort of starting off the career and wanting that sort of freedom within what he did and the sort of battles, the legal battles that he had. So I think, it is saying that because you're in a high stakes environment, whatever you're doing, either if you pull back, you are very crucial. What you do is very crucial. You're highly, highly skilled, and you're highly, highly adept at dealing with the environment you're in. Or if you're in a creative environment, you are a money maker, or you've got all the potential of that, and people know that. you are going to get quite a bit of pushback, and it's sort of egotistical, and it's about who writes the narrative in some way about this creative energy. So, okay. It feels like business there more than anything. It feels like, what you want to do right for the business and so forth, whereas you may be wanting to do something that's more right for the world in some way, or you just might want to take a bit of a break. Okay, so let's have a look at some spiritual gifts that you have to deal with this particular challenge. So we have Portal Keeper. Okay, so you're sort of someone who can move in between the sort of dimensions and get energy and support that way, and understanding, which is probably why you're so kind of aware about the ecosystem and how things connect. We also have Aura Reader. So you may well be able to assess people, read their auras, have a sense about who might be pushing back and why. So pay attention to that, don't doubt it. We have Pendulum and Fire again. So you are just as fiery as they are. Whether it's because you're a workaholic and they're workaholic, whether you're all very ambitious, or whether you're highly creative, you are just as fiery, and don't let their fire overwhelm you. And the fire here is about spontaneity. So this is Loki. This is the shapeshifter. One of your biggest strengths in all of this is you find it easier to shift and move and understand your environment and find the way through, the Fool reverse, being the wise person in this situation, much more quickly than the people who are trying to push back. They're a little bit more conventional. They follow the rules a bit more or whatever. With Pendulum, with decision, I'm getting like some of you just might use pendulums for decisions, yes, no sort of questions and that kind of thing. But beyond that, I think it's saying that the power of the decision is in your hands. People will probably try and tell you it isn't, but it is in your hands. If you're a workaholic, you can make the decision about how to not be so much that. If you want to change what you're doing creatively, you can make the decision. Okay, so let's look at a little bit more about you. Let's look at some astrology around you, astrology energy within you or around you that can help you with this. We've got full moon, Leo, and Sagittarius. Okay, this is a fire energy. I think most of you probably have fire very strongly in your charts if you know your charts. Or, if you don't, you would maybe be a fire sign like Leo or Sagittarius. There's something so creative. There's something so in the center of everything with Leo. You are a natural leader. You are a natural performer. You are all those sorts of things. But I think there's a bit of a thing with Leo about, maybe you reach a level, particularly if this is the workaholic side of it, where you can actually delegate a bit. Like, I think there might be a sort of sense here, you've got the sense of the lion sort of sitting back and watching the tribe. Like, maybe that's part of it. Part of your decision is where you can delegate. Maybe you don't tend to do that. Full moon suggests that you have reached somewhere where you are harvesting the rewards of your skills, talents, and so forth. And this could be, maybe it's time now to let go of the reins a bit, to free yourself up a bit with Sagittarius, to refocus what you want to do, and to make it more spiritually important to you. Going back to St. Francis, whatever you're doing, it's sort of like, even if you're a workaholic and you really want to help people, it might be, the best way you can help people is now train up and mentor others to do some of what you're doing, or to take your creative energy into something that is inspirational on that level. Okay, use another deck that has sometimes astrology and sometimes other sort of spiritual symbols and so forth to see what else Spirit wants to tell you. December moon and the seed of life. So yeah, the December moon is very much around the time to sort of like consider what you move forward with. It's the same as the kind of full moon energy. It's time to go within to decide what is and isn't working. So this is really an internal process for you to make some decisions so that you can reseed your enthusiasm, what you bring to the world, all of that sort of thing with the seed of life. There's something so vital about what you do, but you shouldn't drain yourself, because that's the biggest risk you have at the moment, pile 4. Okay, so lastly, let's call on angels to see a couple of angels that might watch over you as you go through this challenge, and what particular aspects of your life they are guarding and protecting and guiding you on. Angel of white light. Angel of past issues. Okay, so Angel of White Light, I think, is a broad spectrum thing here. It picks up the kind of St. Francis energy. It's about coming into the light. And I think it's the angel is saying to you that you come from a very good place, because Loki can be a bit of a trickster. So there could be like, some people may not really understand your motives sometimes, but the angel of white light is telling you that there is a purity to what you do. But there is something in the past you're dealing with. And this angel is gently saying, what is it in your past that is making you like this? What made you maybe a workaholic if you are? What made you feel that you weren't doing enough creatively? What is going on there? It's something from your past. So it's just a last clue for you to look back to the patterns that you've done that have brought you where you are. It may be part of what then helps liberate you to be more what you want to be in the future. So Pile 4, I hope that resonated for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share about in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.